This week I'm going to try and lay the groundwork for lore content. Finally, the player is going to learn how to read, as I'm putting books and other readable content into the game. Just don't expect it to look too nice because I'm really just prototyping stuff at the moment. This is a game which tries to distill the feeling of exploring a high fantasy world, finding collectibles and discovering places down into a gameplay loop that plays out in short bursts. If that sounds even slightly interesting to you, then why not subscribe to follow the progress? I'm told it's completely free to do. I'm also going to add chests which can contain cool things, release alpha 0.7 to GitHub, and also start experimenting with shrines and temples for extra juicy lore. So I'm trying to focus on adding different pieces of lore content right now, because what you'll generally get in these sorts of fancy games is like, you can find books and you can read them. I'm hoping everyone in my audience can read, otherwise this game's gonna suck. There's no icon for it right now. Book of Goblin Stories, a crudely written tome of popular goblin stories. Right, as always, we're not making it look nice at the moment yet, guys. Scrub that image from your head of me trying to make everything look nice, because we're just getting the wireframe in place. So now I had the simple book reading interface, I then had to figure out how the player might actually find books. I wanted them to be able to find things like an old skeleton in a dungeon and search it for items, but I also had no way to show these things in the inventory. So one of the things I want to do is kind of have like a secondary inventory screen, because say you go up to a treasure chest, you might want to be able to look inside it to see what sort of other items are actually there. If this is your regular inventory screen, if I was to go over here and open this up, then you can see I've got a secondary screen here. Now there are some problems with it, as I'm sure you can expect. First of all, when you click something, it looks like that. The other problem I've got is that you can see the player walking there, and if you look down there, you can see that's actually casting a shadow. And then the final problem is that you can actually just move the player like this. But I mean, still, it's coming together. I've just got lots of things improved with the inventory system. Going in here now, you've got your secondary grids, and you can do a bunch of other things. So you can do it like move to this inventory, move to that inventory. You can use stuff. Oh, are you serious? Okay, everything's working perfectly. So I can do stuff like that. I can give myself a goblin book and have a little read of it, and then I can shut that down. I do still have this thing in the background, but we'll get over that. And the shadow is still there. Right, so the idea is that this would be like some sort of decrepit temple, and there just happens to be a treasure chest there. So you'll be able to do things like go inside it, search through it, and there, look, you've got your random piece of lore. And you can read it in place, or you could transfer it to your inventory, and maybe put some other item in the chest as a result. And you see that if I was then to go back, that the item is still there, so it does actually manage to save it. And I could do things like if I went down here and then went back over here and then had a look in the chest, hey look, it's still there. So that's nice. Now obviously when dealing with content I needed to actually make some icons. I'm still not really sure if I'm going to keep using pixel art for the icons, but for now it's fine. I don't think realistically you'd have books that are like this colourful. Hey, look at my book, that's cute. I think what I'd like is a bunch of different pieces that I can sort of glue together under different contexts to make like something. Quite a bit of this week was just experimenting in the Voxel editor for styles I might want to actually follow. As the game starts to come together, I'll spend a lot more time doing just this sort of thing. The goal was just to make modular pieces which I could slot together in a level editor later on. But through doing this I was also able to improve my voxel editing pipeline. Firstly, I managed to fix an issue with the Voxel editor that had annoyed me for quite a while because I thought it was just my mouse. Clicking things was actually really annoying because lots of clicks were just completely skipped. Actually, it turned out this was a bug because my display was one of those high refresh ones that was able to get to 120 frames a second, and it turned out in the Voxel editor, rendering and input logic were tied to the exact same fixed frame rate, so actually a lot of the clicks ended up just getting completely skipped. I was able to get around that by hacking the frame rate to force 30, and suddenly inputs were nice to use again. What used to be a total nightmare, now if I just burp, it just works. I thought I'd share that because I was quite pleased with it. It was super annoying to actually edit stuff previously in Voxel because this was like an actual thing that was happening. Secondly, I decided I actually liked the workflow of being able to work on lots of different model pieces in the same editor file. It could drastically reduce the number of files I ended up needing, and it's also just a much nicer workflow. But then I would need to get my asset export tool to be able to actually understand how to export the individual meshes. Voxel had no actual way to export a single layer, so I just ended up forking it and quickly adding in a number of the features. This stuff is all a work in progress still, so I'll talk about it next week, but the Python side is almost done, and the C modifications to Voxel are committed and now all on branch. Right, so I've made a bit of progress. I think I'm just trying to make structures in general, like not necessarily try and make anything. So things like this are actually really interesting to make, and I think it looks quite good. I think this is the sort of thing that the voxel art style really enables quite well. And I think what I quite like is to have a lot of these sort of quite reusable pieces that I can stick together in different scenarios in the editor and then just sort of place them around the world. Like it would be good if there was, like ruins and that sort of thing. I think that's kind of what I'm going to try and go for in the setting for this game. So that's it for this week. I think a lot of this stuff is going to end up getting carried over to next week because it's not totally done. And if you're wondering how I make my editor tools, then I guess you'd probably like to watch this video where I basically tell you exactly how I do that.